Hi, this is Noah Zerby. Welcome back to my Model United Nations video series. This video series focuses on preparing students to be familiar with the rules of debate used at Model United Nations of the Far West, held every April in San Francisco. While the video focuses on the rules for MUNFW, the basic concepts of parliamentary procedure are applicable to Model United Nations conferences more generally. In other videos in this series, we've looked at the rules used in voting block and the other phases of debate, the precedents of procedural motions, and various other rules. This video is a catch-all for the remaining rules you'll use while at conference. For the most part, the use of these rules is uncommon, and it's likely you may never see them used at conference at all. But if they are used, it's good to have an understanding of what's going on. Because of that, I'd suggest you start with the other videos first if you've not already done so. But if you're ready, here are some of the miscellaneous rules you may see used at Far West. The first of these rules is P13 Competence. This rule permits the body, by a 2/3 majority vote, to decide whether or not a particular item, usually a resolution, falls under the jurisdiction of the body itself. The chair will normally permit 2 speakers in favor and 2 against such a motion. Once the speeches are completed, the body votes to decide whether or not it is competent to discuss and vote on the item. Note that agenda items are never subject to a decision of competence. It only applies to underlying resolutions or other motions or decisions by the body. Next is a P24 Right of Reply. A right of reply may be granted by the chair in response to an extraordinary comment bearing directly on the national or personal dignity of a delegate concerned. In other words, if a delegate is egregiously and personally attacked by another delegate, the chair may afford the offended delegate the opportunity to respond to the attack outside the normal rules of debate. A right of reply should be reserved for exceptional attacks, not granted for normal diplomatic exchanges. The right is granted exclusively by the chair and should not and may not be requested by the delegate. In general, if delegates are performing their roles and representing the interests of their country, rights of reply are rarely seen. Usually, a right of reply is granted only for extraordinary comments. P31 Credentials is the rule that permits a delegation to challenge the credentials of another delegation if there is a major discrepancy between the member state vote on a proposal and the member state's actual policy on that item according to that member's policy statement. The challenge must be submitted in writing to the committee chair, who informs the Secretary General of the challenge. The Secretary General then calls a meeting of the Credentials Committee to review the evidence and to make recommendations to the General Assembly. The General Assembly then renders its decision regarding the credentialing of the member state. While the delegation's credentials are being reviewed, the delegation is normally seated under P32 Provisional Admission. Under this rule, the delegation retains all of its normal rights of participation, including the right to speak on and vote on matters before the committee. At every conference, some group of delegates is upset and threatens to call the credentials of another delegate. Please don't ever do this. In all the time I've been doing Model United Nations, first as a student and later as a faculty advisor, I've seen credentials called dozens of times. It never does anything except cause a lot of drama and waste a lot of time. The Credentials Committee will not meet at conference, and the next rule, P32 Provisional Admission, permits any country whose credentials have been called to remain in full participation in the committee until the General Assembly renders its decision. Do yourself a favor, avoid the drama, and don't use this rule. Rule 33, Security Council Priority, states that any item under consideration by the Security Council may be discussed but not voted on by another committee unless requested to do so by the Security Council itself. This rarely comes into play, but because the agenda of the Security Council is not set until conference, it occasionally does happen. The same rule permits a Uniting for Peace resolution. Under this rule, the Security Council may refer to the General Assembly any item on which it is seized because of the veto of one of the permanent members of that body. This has happened rarely within the history of the United Nations, and even more rarely in Model United Nations sessions. Nevertheless, it's good to be aware. A P35 invitation to silent prayer or meditation is in order only immediately after the opening of the first plenary meeting and only immediately before the closing of the final plenary meeting of each session of the General Assembly. The motion is invited by the chair and limited to 1 minute. The motion is never in order at any other time of the conference. Finally, Rule P38, invitation to participate, is used to invite observers, which can be either organizations or non-member states, to participate in the work of a committee. A proposal to invite a participant requires a simple majority to pass and permits 2 speakers in favor and 2 against. If approved, observer states or organizations are limited to rising under P23, P24, and P25 and are never granted the right to vote on any motion. That concludes the miscellaneous conference rules. By now you should be familiar with the rules necessary to be successful at conference. Good luck.